good morning, or depending when you're listening to this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and I was always told I had a voice for radio, so today I'm showing you some games from a city championship. We are in Truro, down in Cornwall, in the UK. We are playing in the standard format. We are playing 50 minutes, best of 3. And we got some good games with some good players. So sit back, grab yourself a nice little beverage, and let's watch some standard format Pokemon games. And I should remind you, we are in the format of X and Y to Breakthrough. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so on the left we have Nitish Deloob. He is going to be playing Yveltal. And on the right we have Max Siddons. He is going to be playing Blastoise, and it looks like he has won the flip and will be going first. He's got a Keldeo in the active, he's got an Articuno on the bench. He is going to be trying to pull off the Archie's Ace in the hole trick, playing that supporter as the only card in his hand, which will allow him to put a Blastoise from his discard pile onto his bench, as if it were just a basic Pokemon, and then draw 5 cards. He can then use Blastoise to accelerate water energy, and just put as many down as he likes. Keldeo will be his main attacker in this deck. Oh, and that is not a good turn 1. He's got very little going down there. 1 energy on the Keldeo. What he really wanted there was to get a Blastoise out and lots of energy on the Keldeo. That hasn't happened. Now, Nitish, for his part, he's got a Seismitoad active. He's got the DCE, which means he is going to be able to Quaking Punch this turn. And he has been able to play a Hypnotoxic Laser to put the Keldeo to sleep. Now, usually, the Seismitoad would not be a particularly good attacker in this matchup because it doesn't do enough damage and Keldeo can KO it very easily. Well, 7 energy or 6 and a muscle band, but still, it can be KO'd by Keldeo and it doesn't do very much damage. However, when we have a situation like this, where the Yveltal player is able to play a laser, the Blastoise player has gotten very little set up, and you're able to Trainer Lock them using Seismitoad's Quaking Punch, we are left in a very different position, whereby the Seismitoad player can actually get an early advantage using Seismitoad and Laser. So now, not only is Max going to have to try and empty his hand and play Maxie's as the only hand card in his hand, he's going to have to do so without using any trainers. No Battle Compressor to put Blastoise or Maxie's in the discard pile. No VS Seeker to get Maxie's back. It's going to be very, very difficult. Now, he does get a second Keldeo down and use Rush In to get away from the poison damage. And there was a Burbank City Gym there, so it did do 30 between turns. And he puts a second energy on that Keldeo. But Keldeo wins by getting 6 energy on a one-hit KOing the Yveltal. If you get 3 energy on there, you can do 110 to Yveltal, and the Yveltal can pile a bunch of energy on, especially when the Yveltal player is playing Laser and Burbank, and then go ahead and get a one-hit KO, and that is not a position you want to be in. So I will explain the matchup more as we go along. Nitish, he slowed the game down. He's got his Seismitoad out, and here, he's going to be content just playing a couple of lasers. Now, because Max has got a couple of Keldeo out, he's always going to be able to use Rush In to get around the lasers, but it will still do the 30 damage here. And he's going to want to just, poke away, do a little bit of damage, and then come and sweep with Yveltal. Both players are going to be looking to win this matchup by getting 3 EX KOs. However, for the time being, Nitish is going to be absolutely content to just play this game, essentially. So we see a double Rush In there, and the active Keldeo's got 60 damage on it. Now, let's say that next turn, and we saw that Max didn't have an energy there because he's still under Trainer Lock. Even if Max gets a third energy, he'll then have 3 energy on the Keldeo. He'll be able to do 110 damage to the active Seismitoad. But what then? Nitish just gets the Seismitoad out of the active, gets a KO with Yveltal, and okay, Max gets his he gets his trainers back at that stage, but only after allowing Nitish to take 2 prizes off an EX, go ahead in the prize race. Not an ideal situation for him to be in. And let's not forget that both of those Keldeos already have 60 damage on them, so it will be very easy for Nitish to it will be very easy for Nitish to be able to KO those Keldeos. And really what the game comes down to in this matchup is between the Blastoise player and the Yveltal player who can stream EX KOs. Whoever can do so more effectively will win the game. It is as simple as that. Although, this is not how we expect this game to be going. We expect Keldeo with 6 energy trying to one-hit KO Yveltals, and Yveltal's coming out with a bunch of energy to use Evil Ball to KO the Keldeo. Now, here's an interesting thing. The Rough Seas comes down and allows Max to start healing up. Nitish will be going for one-hit KOs anyway, so when the Yveltal starts going, it is going to make the Rough Seas is going to make little difference. What the Rough Seas does for the moment, however, Nitish does 30 damage with Quaking Punch. Max heals 30 damage with Rough Seas. And to be honest, we call it even. Nobody gets any closer to winning. And Max gets more time to try and set up. Or, put it another way, Nitish gets more time to pile damage onto the Yveltal. Now, I was playing Yveltal at this same tournament. If I were Nitish here, I would want a second Yveltal. The reason is very simple. Yveltal can one-hit KO Keldeo. Nothing else in Nitish's deck can. Keldeo will be one-hit KOing what's in your deck, so you need to be one-hit KOing in return. Which means you need the Yveltal EX. So presumably here, Nitish is going to be looking for another Yveltal EX. If at any time in this video I sound a little bit different to normal, let's just say there are some mild dental problems going on. So if I sound a little bit lispier than usual, if I sound a teensy bit unusual, hopefully the disruption is at a minimum, but that is your explanation. So we do see a Dark Energy going on to Seismitoad. It's not going to help him attack, but remember that Darkrai's ability allows any Pokemon free retreat as long as they have a Dark Energy attached. So what the Dark Energy does is it allows a Seismitoad to free retreat. We also see a Muscle Band going on there, and I told you a minute ago how the damage from Seismitoad's attack is basically being undone by the Rough Seas. Well, here, the combination of Laser and Muscle Band means that he'll be doing 60 damage, 30 of which can be healed by Rough Seas, which means it will do some damage overall. It's not ideal, but he's still doing damage while stopping Max setting up. And this is a very good thing for Nitish. He's getting set up. Now, if he could set up a pair of Yveltals on the bench with, free energy on each, he is absolutely sorted. Even a couple energy, to be honest, would be enough. A Keldeo needs 6 energy to do Sacred Sword for 170 and get a KO on an Yveltal, at which point you only need 2 energy on an Yveltal to Evil Ball for 180. Now, Max could get a KO using a Keldeo with 5 energy and a Muscle Band, in which case Nitish would either need 2 energy and a Muscle Band, 3 energy, or 2 energy and a Laser with a Burbank City Gym in play. Either way, when this matchup really gets going, when it heats up, it does turn into a smash fest. Now, there is going to be a temptation here for Max to rush in and do 110 damage to that Seismitoad. This would be a mistake. He's going to do it. Sorry to be mean, Max. This is a mistake. Because what's going to happen now is that Nitish is going to get the KO with that Yveltal by free retreating the Seismitoad. He is going to heal the Seismitoad using Rough Seas, and he's going to go 2 prizes up while he leaves the Seismitoad on the bench. Now, he needs 1 more energy to get the KO with the Yveltal. A Dark Patch would do it. He's got 1 in hand. He will need 1 more. You essentially need 9 energy, but Yveltal himself counts as 1. So you got Yveltal plus 3 energy plus the Muscle Band is 5, plus the 3 on Keldeo is 8. That's 160. So he would need a Laser or another energy to get the KO at this point. He's only doing 160 as it stands. So Laser or Dark Patch. He's got himself a Dark Patch. Is he going to remember? And see, I'm not a fan of building up the Darkrai, but it could be that his Yveltals are prized or that he can't draw into them or whatever. But here, Darkrai EX and Baby Yveltal aren't going to help him win the game. Yveltal EX is going to help him win the game. So if I were Nitish, and I played Max at this tournament, so quite frankly, during some games, I was Nitish. And during those games, it was Yveltal EX. I wanted Yveltals on the bench so that any turn Max brought up a Keldeo to get the KO, I had the return KO with my own Yveltal EX. And then I would play a Hex Maniac to turn off abilities so that there would be one turn I could KO a Keldeo, then I could play a Hex Maniac, he couldn't return the KO, and then I could kill a Shaman on that turn, and that's how I would jump ahead in the prize race. Now, Nitish doesn't need to jump ahead in the prize race. You only need to play the Hex Maniac one turn and kill a Shaman, where your opponent takes the first EX KO. Now, that is not the case here. Nitish is going to get the first KO on the Yveltal, but... And is he going to remember to heal the Seismitoad using his opponent's Rough Seas? Because this is something people very often forget, and it doesn't look like he has. No, he's replaced the Rough Seas with a Burbank City Gym. He could have healed 30 damage off of his Seismitoad there. Remember, Rough Seas works for both players, not just the one. Now here is a lovely play from Nitish. He uses a Lysandra to pull up the Shaman. Because he's got a muscle band, he's going to be able to Y-Cyclone for 110. And he is going to be able to put the energy, or one energy, onto one of his bench Pokemon. Now, as much as I've talked about the fact that I would disagree... Oh, and Max just scoops knowing he can't win. Now, as much as I was saying I disagreed with not going for a second Yveltal, don't forget there was a half-dead Keldeo on Max's bench. So although Nitish didn't have the ability to... one-hit KO that Keldeo. He didn't need to one-hit KO it. That Keldeo still had 90 damage on the bench. So, as I always say in my videos, I can't always talk in absolutes. Yes, I'm saying that Nitish should have multiple Yveltals ready to go, and I believe that. I genuinely believe that that is the best way to approach this game. However, what we must bear in mind here is that Nitish essentially took the chance that there was going to be no AZ to pick up that Keldeo, or no second Rough Seas coming down to heal the Keldeo. He took that chance paid off, and it meant that he had victory in that game. But this game is literally going to come down to one-hit KOs of EXs. If Max can get some Keldeos out of a whole bunch of energy early game, there is very little Nitish can do other than playing Hex Maniac after KOing a Keldeo to stop Max getting a return KO. Whereas if Nitish gets set up like he did in that game, there's very little Max can do. Although I would be surprised to see Nitish go down the Seismitoad route again. It seems like he went that route because he started Seismitoad. However, we saw that it was a very good plan and it worked out very nicely indeed. Now, I did have a quick look at Nitish's deck, his deck list at the beginning of this tournament. And I'm sure I remember him just playing one Seismitoad EX. So I'm not entirely sure how he started with it both games, but he's clearly started with it here, and he has clearly remembered what happened in the previous game and thought, you know what? This worked out quite well in the previous game. Let's try it again. Now, Max knows what he needs to do. Now, let's not forget, Max had a fairly horrific start in the previous game. In the previous game, Max did not have a very good start. He did not have a very good time of it. He couldn't even get his Blastoise out. Now, he's using a Battle Compressor to dump 2 Archies in the discard pile. Two Blastoise and 1 Archie's Ace in the hole. He is going to try and then have 1 Archie's or a VS Seeker to get an Archie's out of the discard pile. As the final card in his hand, he will play it to put a Blastoise on the bench, draw 5 cards, and he is go. Now, I think Max is going to do something here that is another play with which I disagree. And just so we're clear, if I'm ever watching these videos and I disagree with a player's play, that doesn't mean they're wrong. It means that I'm giving an alternate opinion, an alternate thing that they could do. It doesn't mean that I am right. Remember, the people playing have access to more information than we do as observers. They can look through their deck. They can look through their opponent's discard pile. They know what's in their hand. Now, one thing that some players do, and I don't know if Max is actually going to do it, so I'm just about to look stupid. Sorry, Max. Please forgive me. A lot of players will get rid of all of their Archies, and it doesn't look like he's doing it now, get rid of all of their Archies from the deck with Battle Compressor, and that, in my opinion, is the wrong way to play it. You always want one Maxis in the deck and one in the discard pile. One in the discard pile that you can hit with the S-Seeker, and one in the deck that you can hit with something like Trainer's Mail, or if you're playing it in Expanded, a Computer Search or a Jirachi. Although, of course, you can Computer Search for the S-Seeker, but you can still Jirachi for it, assuming he's playing Jirachi, which he may not be. Anyway, so we see a Laser Verbank coming down here, and he gets a heads, or tails, sorry, but the Articuno is still he's still poisoned. Now, we only see one Dark... Oh, and this is not a good start from Nitish at all here. There is a big opening for Max if he can get a good turn now. Oh, there comes Rough Seas to heal all the damage off and get rid of the Verbank. And this is going to be an interesting turn. Because the question is he going to be... Oh my goodness, he's got nothing. He's just had to use Articuno's one energy attack to put Seismitoad to sleep. Having said that, it's worked out quite nicely because Nitish hits Tails on sleep and he is stuck asleep. Now we can see Nitish has a Colress in hand for one. It's not worth playing that Colress right now, and there's two reasons, and they are Computer Search and Ultra Ball. If he draws an Ultra Ball or a Computer Search, he will need two cards in his hand to discard. So, and this is just a general rule when playing Pokemon and drawing dead, make sure you've got two cards in your hand at all times, unless you absolutely can't. The reason you have two cards in your hand at all times is because if you top deck an Ultra Ball, you can Ultra Ball the two cards in your hand, get a Shaman or in Expanded a Jirachi, and off you go. Or in Expanded, you can go ahead and get yourself a Computer Search and draw from that. The worst thing in the world is when you got one card, well, not the worst thing in the world, but something very annoying is when you've got one card in your hand and you draw into a Computer Search. Now, Max has been doing a lot of stuff while I was explaining about that. He's got his Blastoise on the bench. He has got access to that Deluge ability, allowing him to put as many water energy in play as he likes every turn. This is good. This is, in fact, the entire point of his deck. Go, Max. Go, Max. The Seismitoad is still asleep, and what he's going to want to do here, as he uses Propagation on that Execute to bring it into his hand, so he only has to discard one card with Ultra Ball. He is going to want to get some Caldeos going. Ideally here, he's going to get 6 energy in a Muscle Band or 7 energy on a Caldeo and KO that Seismitoad. Now, if he does that, there is a possibility that Max just goes Yveltal, Dark Energy, Dark Patch. But of course, he would still have to get the Darkrai out of the active, which is not the easiest thing in the world. And he would have to draw into a lot to do that. So here, Max is looking pretty good. So that Execute comes in handy again with Superior Energy Retrieval, gets a couple energy out of the discard, does 110 damage to a Seismitoad. Now here comes a Laser, and as we saw in the previous game, as soon as Max gets two Caldeo into play, he can essentially bypass Hypnotoxic Laser. Hypnotoxic Laser will then essentially do absolutely nothing. But he doesn't, well, it will do, it will do damage, but he is immune from the sleep, and it will only do damage for a single turn. However, that is not the situation in which we currently find ourselves. There is only one Caldeo on Max's side of the field, so he's going to need another one. Now, this is a much slower start from Nitish, but we see there he's got a couple of Yveltal on his bench. What he's going to really want to try, and he's going to want a big turn here. Now, you see, he finally played his Colress to draw a whole bunch of stuff. What he's going to really want to do here is get some Dark Energy in the discard pile, start playing some Dark Patches and attaching double Colorless and all that good stuff, and Muscle Bands and Lasers, and he's going to want to do, and like I said, and I know I keep repeating myself here, but this is literally what this game comes down to, at least looking at the builds of these decks. Without any special tricks, it comes down to Caldeo versus Yveltal. They can both one-hit KO each other. Now, with an even draw, I would give the slight advantage to the Yveltal player here, and the reason is Hex Maniac. You can play Hex Maniac to turn off abilities of all Pokemon until the end of your opponent's next turn, and that means that you can KO a Caldeo, and your opponent can't use Deluge the following turn. Now, something else which Nitish isn't playing, but some of these Yveltal decks too, is Gallade. Oh, we see a computer search coming down from Max, choosing not to propagate the execute. Which is not the end of the world, because he clearly wanted to empty his hand a little bit, as sometimes you wish to do. So not a bad thing at all here. And a Rough Seas comes down, and he gets to heal his Articuno a little bit. And there is a VS Seeker. Is he going for another Maxis here? He is, and that's why. Oh, and that's a really nice play there. He's got an extra Blastoise. There is always the option that the Yveltal player can try and Lysandre up and kill the Blastoise. Usually not something you have to worry about, because, as I've said, the route to victory is KOing 3 EXs, and if you're KOing the Blastoise, you're not KOing the Yveltal that's got all the energy attached. But that's not the point. He has left himself safe here. He's got 2 Blastoise, and that is a very good thing. He gets the KO, and he's got a second Caldeo on the bench now to get around sleep and, you know, to limit poison to a one-turn damage thing. Now, he's also got the first KO. He's put himself in the driver's seat. Now, the thing I was going to mention that Yveltal players can and do sometimes play is Gallade. And what Gallade does very nicely is it allows you to Lysandre up a Shaman, get a one-hit KO for a double colourless energy, and then you've got a single prize non-EX with 150 HP in the active. And if your opponent doesn't kill it, then you get to just Lysandre another Shaman or something else and kill it the following turn. With a Muscle Band, it'll even one-hit KO a Blastoise. So that's something that some Yveltal players do play, although clearly here Nitish is going for Laser Verbank. And one thing I found in my testing and deck building lately is that as an Yveltal player, you generally have a choice. You can either go Laser Verbank, or you can go for Gallade, Archeops, and Maxis. You can't do all of it, and I really wish you could. So an interesting play here. Max choosing to... Oh, and this looks like it could be a very quick game here. I was going to say Max choosing to get 2 free energy Caldeos rather than 1 6 energy Caldeo, and very good reason for this. A free energy Caldeo does 110, it KOs a Shaman, and it leaves you less vulnerable to Hex Maniac, because if Nitish were to kill the Caldeo, as it looks like he's going to here, and play Hex Maniac, although he's not, he's playing an N, Max would still have free energy on that Caldeo. Now, if Max hits a Lysandre or a VS Seeker here, the game is over. He has won. If he doesn't, Nitish can still win. However, if he were to hit a superior energy retrieval, he would also get the win here, because a superior energy retrieval would mean he would be able to grab those free energy from the Caldeo that's just about to be killed out of the discard pile, put them back onto his Caldeo, and get the KO. Now, he's already got the VS Seeker. And it looks like he actually had 2 in hand. As a quick point, and this isn't something I'm so hot on, but some of my friends who are exceptionally good players tell me this. Don't put the Caldeo in the active. Put something else in the active, and then rush in when you want to attack with a Caldeo. I get told off by my friends sometimes because I'm about to attack with a Pokemon, so I'll put it in the active when something gets KO'd, and then my friends will be like, well, hang on a second, why didn't you put your free retreater into the active? And I'll say, well, I didn't need to. I knew I was going to get a KO with this. And what my friend said, it's Tamal Cameron, it's mainly him, who is a better player than I should point out. And he basically says, no, you put the free retreater in the active, you draw your card, you play out your turn. If you put the free retreater in the active, you can always change your mind. If you put the attacker in the active, and then you realise you don't have the card you want, or you draw or top deck something that gives you a better play, and you've got the attacker that you now don't want in the active, you've got no choice. So you always put the free retreater in the active, or in this case, you put something else in the active and rush in only when you're about to attack. So a 1-game all here, And Nitish and that is a Getsis on turn 1. That is actually, that's a little bit advantageous. Getsis makes your opponent reveal their hand and shuffle all their item cards back into their deck, and then you draw as many cards as they shuffled back in, which in this case is 1. In this case, it was only a VS Seeker. Max has no Battle Compressor, and obviously you would generally Battle Compress a supporter to bring back with a VS Seeker. So actually, all he's done is Battle Compress get rid of a VS Seeker, which he couldn't play anyway, meaning he's got one less card in hand, which means that Shaman he's got is actually more useful now. So that's kind of cool. That's kind of interesting. So, now Max doesn't have much of a hand here. Now he's got the 1 energy for the Mewtwo, but the Mewtwo is poison. There's a Verbank in the active. Oh, all Nitish. Now it's quite a lot, but if Nitish can get a Dark Patch double colorless here, he's going to be able to Y-Cyclone for the win. That Mewtwo's going to be at 90 damage at the end of this turn from poison. Oh, and okay, it's not going now. It's a moot point. What he could potentially, and he needed a lot to do it, but there was a possibility here. Now, if he could get, no, I don't know if he plays Floatstone or anything like that. Okay, he's playing a Colress here for 4 because he knows Max has got a bad hand and doesn't want to end him. If Nitish hits a Dark Patch and has a Dark in a discard, he wins this turn because he can just Evil Ball for the KO. Had he had a Floatstone or something like... Has he got a computer? No, it's a VS Seeker. So it doesn't look like he can win. If he'd had something like a Floatstone there, he would actually... Oh, and yeah, he did have a Dark in a discard. So had he drawn a Dark Patch there, that would have been game. He could have free retreated and got the KO. Having said that, I'm talking about how Nitish could have won on turn 2. It doesn't look like Nitish is going to be struggling to win this game. It looks like Nitish is doing okay. He is very much in the driver's seat. Max has not been drawing very well this whole match, to be honest. He drew all right in turn 2 and went to a victory, and this is often what these games turn into. Yveltal doesn't beat Blastoise. Blastoise doesn't beat Yveltal. They're both very good decks. They're both powerful decks. And to be honest, they both have a decent matchup. And Max does play Jirachi here, which backs up my previous point that you should always leave one Maxie's Hidden Ball Trick in your deck so that you can either VS Seeker for the 1 in the discard or Jirachi for the 1, or even Ultra Ball for Jirachi for the 1 that's in your deck. And if the Blastoise player draws better and gets the Caldeo doing and smashing, while the Yveltal player can't return the KOs, he wins. If the Yveltal player gets set up and starts smashing while the Blastoise player is struggling, the Yveltal player wins. If they both set up, it depends on who takes the first EX KO, and whether one of them can, we saw the Articuno there that Max plays with the Delta Plus Ancient trait, allowing you to take an extra prize if you KO something with it, or... if they can use something like Hex Maniac to slow down the Blastoise player, things of that nature. So another Battle Compressor comes down here, getting rid of some energy to fuel Dark Patch, and a Lysandra that you can, or that Nitish can get back with VS Seeker later on. That is, of course, a very common practice that players use, where they will put a supporter in the discard pile with something like a Battle Compressor, purely so that they can reuse it later on with VS Seeker. So it looks like Nitish got the KO on the Mewtwo there. He needs to take his prizes, because the Mewtwo's gone in the discard pile and he's just used Oblivion Wing. So don't forget, there we go. Nitish's going to take his prizes there, and this is already not looking good for Max. Now, this third game isn't very old, but let's have a look at the field. Let's have a look at what's going on. Nitish is in a position where he's taken the first 2 prizes. He has got an Yveltal on his side of the field that's got 3 Dark Energy attached and a Muscle Band, which means it can KO a Shaman or a Jirachi, as is, and if Max gets enough energy on a Caldeo, then Nitish is going to be able to KO that as well. What Max really needs here, and he cannot possibly get it, is 6 energy on a Caldeo plus a Lysandre. Now, usually, what Nitish has done here, leaving all of his energy on one Yveltal EX on the bench, would be a very bad plan. Because your opponent can just go, well, Lysander, and now I kill your Yveltal, now you're out of options. But of course, Nitish knows that that isn't an issue here. The only way that Max can get 6 energy on a Caldeo is by playing a Maxis to get a Blastoise out. Well, if Max... Oh, and there we... An Archie, sorry, which he does there. Well, he's now played his one supporter for the turn. So now Max has got his Blastoise, but even if he gets 6 energy on a Caldeo, he's used his supporter for the turn. There will be no Lysander this turn because he can't play another supporter. And that's one thing I always try and keep in mind when I play against Blastoise. If they don't have a Blastoise on the bench, I know that there will be no Lysander the turn of an Archie's. So I can leave a Shaman on the bench, which I might not want to leave because a free energy Caldeo KOs it. Because I know there's going to be no Lysander next turn. And if there is, they're not going to be able to get the KO anyway. So it is always worth thinking ahead, you know, trying to, I suppose, guess what your opponent is going to be doing. Because that way you can, you know, make sure that you're not putting yourself in an awkward position. Nitish and that Yveltal would have been awkward, except for the fact that there is absolutely no possible way Max can KO it, turning it from a dodgy play into a very good play. Now, speaking of very good play, this is not a very good play from Max. And I'm sorry for saying that, Max. Please don't think I'm mean. What would have been a better play there would be just rushing in a Caldeo and just leaving it in the active with no energy attached. If you look at Nitish's side of the board, he's already got 8, essentially. 6 energy plus the Yveltal plus the Muscle Band is 160. So a laser or another energy here will get the KO on the Caldeo. So Nitish is already up 2 prizes. Max takes 1 prize on the Yveltal. Nitish here is going to be able to take 2 prizes on the Caldeo, at which point he will be 4 prizes up and... 3 prizes up and essentially winning. Now, this is all a moot point because Nitish is taking the KO on the Shaman here. What would have been my preferred play from the Blastoise player there would have been to leave something like a Caldeo with no energy in the active, forcing your opponent to have a Lysander, and then using your own Lysander to start taking your prizes the following turn. It's not really worth taking 1 prize and giving up 2. And here, Nitish just gets an easy KO on that final. He doesn't even need to get the Jirachi. He had the KO on the Caldeo. That is overkill, ladies and gentlemen. He was doing 180 to the Caldeo, but he chose to grab a Jirachi off the bench and KO it anyway. An interesting game there where we saw what these 2 decks do, and I thank you very much to Maxin and to Nitish Delube for agreeing to be on stream, and thank you to everyone at Xeon City Gym down in Truro in Cornwall for not only allowing us to record, but for setting us up a little table with a plug socket and really making it as nice and as easy as possible to record. They were phenomenally good hosts, and if anybody finds themselves in Truro in the future, get down to Xeon City Gym. It is a wonderful, wonderful place to be. So thank you to everyone involved for this. Make sure you like, comment and subscribe. We've just hit 2,000 subscribers on this channel. That makes me happy, but I'm a greedy man, ladies and gentlemen. I'm always after more. Like, comment, subscribe, look after yourselves till next time. I've recorded 5 rounds from this tournament and another one is going to be coming up very soon indeed. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross and you've been watching PTCG Radio.